Good evening and welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the current events, the Constitution, and an explanation of those things into your home each month. I'm James Barrett, and with Mark Malachowski, we're going to be here tonight to provide you some insight. Mark, what are our subjects tonight?
Well, first of all, we've got Benghazi.
Benghazi, are we talking about the Libyan consulate in North Africa?
Yeah, what happened, I think it was September 11th, 2012. The consulate in Benghazi, Libya, the American consulate, got attacked, and the ambassador and 3 Navy SEALs were killed.
Okay, well, we're talking about, you said September 11th. That sounds a lot like another day in history. Was that a special day in history, Mark?
Well, yeah, that's the original. Well, actually, there was a couple attacks on the World Trade Center. The first one didn't work, but they blew up part of the parking lot.
Right.
And the second one was more effective. They took some airplanes and knocked down the Twin Towers. So on the anniversary of that, there's always some trouble, and with Muslim extremists or Islamic extremists. And in this case, there's been some recent developments because Congress has been trying to subpoena this paperwork for 9 months or a year or so. But then there was a court order. I think it was Judicial Watch, is a private group or a funded group that sued the administration.
Under the Freedom of Information Act.
Right. And then out came this White House email that had been previously hidden from the subpoena. So it kind of brings up the whole balance of power thing right now, where the Congress has subpoena power, but if the executive
branch
ignores it, nothing happens because it gets referred back to the executive branch.
Well, that goes over to the Attorney General.
Right, it's part of the executive branch. So.
Right, and if the Attorney General doesn't follow through with any type of punishment or further investigation, it gets kind of whitewashed.
Well, the thing is, I think that Congress can don't they have a little jail there if somebody's in contempt? Can't they just put them there? In a
well, unfortunately, Congress doesn't really have that power. They can hold them in contempt of Congress.
Right.
But what happens is that gets referred to the Attorney General for prosecution.
Right.
And if the Attorney General is not going to prosecute, then that contempt of Congress actually means nothing. In fact, the Attorney General has been held in contempt of Congress himself.
But
no one prosecuted him for that contempt of Congress.
He didn't seem very concerned about that.
Okay, well, let's go back to Benghazi because the email I believe you're talking about involves a kind of a general briefing to the White House and how we're going to handle.
Well, it was coming from the White House, right? And it said that they wanted to have the story that the protest was rooted in this video, and a protest caused the attack or the demonstration that got out of hand. And I guess some people were out for a walk. According to Hillary Clinton, some people were out for a walk, and then they ended up. Maybe they brought some rocket launchers and some machine guns and some tactical
I think we've touched on this a little bit before, and there's a choice of whether or not it was a pre-planned terrorist assault or was it a impromptu reaction to the video. Because in Egypt, there had already been some alleged reaction to the video,
right?
And so what happened was it seemed as though the talking points that went along with that had everything to do with a video. Which, by the way, is a ridiculous video, should have never been made. It's really poor taste. But that's not the basis for a military assault on a compound in North Africa.
Well, Obama said that, I think about 3 or 4 or 5, 6 weeks after the incident, after that November 11th or September 11th, 2012, he told the United Nations that, we have the First Amendment, unfortunately, so you can have these anti-Muslim videotapes, and he was sorry, and it won't happen again. We'll try to. He apologized for the videotape, and he said, but then that wasn't really a good reason for the attack. And then even very recently, he said this was a phony scandal. So Obama stuck to his story that the cause of Ambassador Ted Stevens' death was due to the anti-Muslim videotape, and they put that guy in jail. The problem's solved, and anybody who speaks differently of that. It's just a right-wing conspiracy to embarrass Hillary Clinton or the president, because Hillary Clinton told the parents of the dead SEALs and that they were going to get this video guy and they were going to get the bottom of this. And it's kind of interesting because shortly after the first 9/11 attack, they knew who did that first explosion, who ordered that explosion in the parking lot of the Twin Towers.
Right.
And shortly after...
It was the Blind Sheik.
The Blind Sheik. And then shortly after the 9/11 of the Twin Towers with the airplanes, they said, "Oh, this is Osama
bin Laden's
within a couple
orders.
weeks." But this has been almost a year and a half, and we still don't know who ordered the attack.
Well, that's interesting because I know CNN interviewed one of the main leaders of that attack, and I also understand British news interviewed a couple of the people from the attack, and in fact, they were staying at beachside resorts drinking pina coladas during the interviews.
Well, what's interesting about that is that, no, Obama still says this is phony scat. He's sticking to it's the Innocence of Muslims video, and there was no militants involved.
Well, wait a minute, I have a question, though. But is there any truth to that rumor?
Well, here you have a guy, Charles Woods, okay, and he was the father of one of the SEALs. And we'll get into that a little sooner. But actually, the SEALs were told reportedly to stand down. Don't go and rescue the consulate. These 3 SEALs disobeyed orders and went to the rescue. They ended up dying as a result. But what Charles Woods said was that this was the Obama failed policy. Gaddafi, who was the president or dictator of Libya, was an enemy of al-Qaeda. Okay. Gaddafi tried to get rid of al-Qaeda. When Obama decided to get rid of Gaddafi, Obama sent millions of dollars worth of weapons to al-Qaeda-related terrorist groups in Libya. These terrorist groups used those American-provided weapons to get rid of Gaddafi, to kill him, to assassinate him, okay? And then the bloodshed didn't discontinue, but it kept on going into the consulate in Benghazi, which resulted in the death of the Americans. So what Charles Wood says, it was Obama's policy of giving millions of dollars of weapons to al-Qaeda, or al-Qaeda group, I think Ansari, something like that.
Yeah, al-Qaeda related.
Yeah, Obama gave them millions of dollars worth of weapons. They
get rid of Gaddafi.
They used that to assassinate, but then they also used, not necessarily these weapons, we don't know, because there really has never been an investigation. But if there had been an investigation, we might have known that the same group were the same ones who assassinated the ambassador and took over the consulate. And so Charles Woods goes on to say that that I met with Hillary Clinton when the bodies came into Andrews Air Force Base.
He's talking about the body of his son.
Right. And Hillary came up to me, and I gave her a handshake and a hug. And I shook her hand. She said to me, "We're going to have that filmmaker arrested."
Well, they did have the filmmaker arrested.
So,
and I do understand he went to jail. And
he spent a year. He did a year, yeah.
Yeah, but what's interesting about that, he went to jail for a probation violation because he changed states more than he making the video.
No, the video was not a charge.
The video wasn't a charge. It was because he violated probation by leaving the state of Florida and going to California. And so it was actually a probation violation why he was put into jail, which wasn't publicized that much. It was more about the video. They kept saying the video. But anyway, there's more to it than this.
But there's also...
But what about all the people that were evacuated that made it out alive? Where are they today?
The 30 witnesses... You know, there's been some reports or some rumors that they were threatened if they talked, they would lose their government pensions and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, so Well, here's some other videos that are really more interesting than this Innocence of Muslims. I mean, the first time I heard this story and they said it was the Innocent Muslims, I watched the video and I said, well, maybe that was the cause of the attack.
Right.
But then when some facts started coming out, it seemed kind of incongruous. But what this Charles Wood said is they had 2 drones above the battle in Benghazi feeding real-time video to the Situation Room in the White House. So there was still 2 drones watching this thing for the whole...
Well, don't you think those drones indicated that this was a military assault and not just some people out for a walk with their dogs and an AK-47 in their side?
Well, I think we should see that. I don't see why the American public can't see those videos.
Well, because they would probably show that it was a military assault, because there was one person that testified that was there, and he said that it was a coordinated battle movement, the way they attacked the compound. And then the whole question is, why did they target the compound? Could it be something more than, not the video, but more than just a compound?
Well, that's a good question. But I mean, the big question is who ordered this? A year and a half later, we don't know who ordered it. I mean, that's never, right now, the Obama said that it was a video and it's a phony scandal. So it's all, we apologize and we're done. But the thing is, we don't know who ordered the attack. Number 2, we don't know. We haven't seen those videos. So those are 2 things I think the American people should know.
I think what we need to do, Mark, is we need to wait till these hearings are done. At this point, we should move on to our next subject.